Welcome back for another episode of The Voice of Generation Climate, The Voice of Gen Z. Today we have with us a true climate hero, Arjun P. Gupta, who is the CEO and founder of Smart Joules and has been in the climate fight since it was not just called climate tech, but it was called clean tech. The previous waves, and he's been a long-standing operator in the space, really setting the trend for the rest of us to follow in the footsteps and start building really cool new climate companies too. Arjun, what a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Annie. I think you're a real climate hero and champion. Love to be in your company.
Awesome. So Arjun and I share multiple, traits and multiple backgrounds too. He went to University of California, Berkeley for his undergrad. And then I kind of followed in those footsteps and also went to University of California, Berkeley later for my undergrad. And it was so amazing to find out that a lot of people who drank that water have actually, for some reason or the other, wanted to solve planetary issues. I don't know if you've seen that trend happen too, but can we actually start from that point in your life, from college onward? What inspired you to really go down this journey of solving for climate?
Hobos.
Always tree huggers and hobos.
Before I went to Berkeley, I was a spoiled brat. I was kind of a bully in school. I used to bully all the kids and get into fights and all this stuff. And, private school, privileged background. So you tend to be like that. Then somehow I made the wise decision to go to Berkeley. Maybe because Stanford didn't accept me. But 4 years later, 5 years later, I turned down Stanford. So that's really, I think Berkeley was amazing. I think, first of all, it's a public school, right? And I think that's really important in the US. I think that there's a big difference between public schools and the culture that is there in private schools. And here you have people from all backgrounds, very, very diverse. And, of course, the history of the college is so rich, social movements, things that matter to the world, not just for private capital and a few intellects. So in the kinds of communities that I hung out in, I was part of one of the oldest engineering schools within Berkeley, which is civil and environmental engineering. Old as building, like 150-year-old building, and I think they still are in the same building. So very, very, they care about building stuff. They don't really care about how things look or how they feel. It's just like, let's build stuff. And the kinds of stuff that has come out of the civil engineering department, we know California is an earthquake-prone area, right?
Yeah. And that fault line runs right through Berkeley. In fact, right through the whole stadium.
Runs through the stadium, and civil engineering department is especially good. They've built some of the best structures. They've come up with the best earthquake engineering. And they also have the best environmental engineering program anywhere in the world. So that's what I joined. And in this program, every class was just like mind-blowing. They were talking about pollution and how it works, about water quality, wastewater treatment, energy, basically natural resources, and how we can engineer the world around us, in an intelligent manner. So that, inside the classroom and then outside, protesters. There's a guy, there's an 80-year-old guy at the entrance of Sproul. And every day he used to stand on top of a bucket with a sign, and he used to say, happy, happy, happy.
Happy, happy, yeah. He was there even when I went. Happy, happy.
Right? So, there's all kinds of characters around campus and many different types of places to hang out in, and people from around the world, all caring about society and how to make it better. So I think that kind of gets into your being, right? Because you spend most of your time there on campus, and 4 years on campus really transformed me, at least from being a brat who only cared about a few things to trying to do something to change the world for the better. So I credit Berkeley for that transition for sure.
Incredible. And I've actually seen that play out with a lot of people who have, like I said, drank that water.
You're one of them.
Started that journey either in college, with some club, or later on, maybe as a first job or as a second or third job later in life. and I think especially now, like I'm 30 and I see a lot of, my peers who are a year over, my classmates, who are also now in the climate tech space, weirdly enough, somewhere in the world. So there was always that notion of build something for the planet, like you're saying. Right?
That's right.
And I think one of the mottos always was, break the status quo. And like, if you can imagine it, you can build it. Right. So if you can imagine a better, cleaner, fairer future, we can build it.
Right. And be unafraid and go after big targets and, things that can actually make a big difference at scale. So I think that was the ethos all around campus, no matter what you wanted to do. Even if it's a protest and you care about a cause, you will think about how to solve the problem, attack, challenge the authorities, not be afraid of anything. So I think, a lot of that still continues along.
Amazing. What played out after that? Describe that journey from your energy career to now Smart Joules.
A lot of things, but I graduated at Berkeley in 2008. Okay, so market crash, obviously big, depression in the US. And as a fresh international student graduate, it was not the very easiest experience. And in fact, after undergrad, I was not the most confident guy either. Okay, I was sort of a nerd, outgoing, but not very confident about myself.
4.0, you were a perfect 4.0, right?
Yeah, but I never used to attend any career fairs. Okay, throughout my 4 years, I never did an internship in the US. I always came back to India and did my internships. I never went to a career fair to do any interviews. So, 2008, even worse time, especially for somebody who's never done an internship there. And with a visa which doesn't allow you to stay in the US for more than 3 months without a job. So, the first lesson, this was a very, very big lesson to me early in my professional career, which hadn't even started, right? That when you're in trouble, ask for help. A lot of people don't ask for help. They just wonder and depressed and they're like, what to do now? And so I asked for help from one of my favorite professors. Her name is Iris Tomeline. She was just a badass. Right, and she was pioneering concepts like lean construction. Toyota's lean method of manufacturing. She was bringing it to the construction industry, and I'd interned with her lab for a couple of months, and she basically sat down and asked me, what do you want to do in life? Right, forget about what's happening outside. The depression and financial crisis. These things keep happening. Right, and fine. I mean, I'm not surprised. She told me, I'm not surprised that you haven't gone and done interviews because I don't see you fitting into a corporate job. So what do you want to do? I said, I want to do something about sustainable development, and it has to be related to India. I don't want a job that is not related to India. Somehow, I was really passionate about sustainable development for India. So she said, okay, in that case, you should go and meet these two gentlemen who work right up the hill. You can walk there. It's a place called Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and it's a US Department of Energy lab. And these two guys are both Indian. And if you want to work on sustainable development related to India, these guys are they're from some of the premier institutes in India, and they've been in the US for about 20 years, and they are doing some really great work. So you should go and meet them. I said, why not? So I went to up the hill to Lawrence Berkeley Lab, and it was just, the entrance of the whole, going on top of the hill and all that, it was just quite intimidating because it's beautiful. There's a cyclotron over there, the early research for the...
So much history. It's got so much history about, the birth of the nuclear age. It really happened in Lawrence Berkeley Lab too.
Exactly. And so many Nobel laureates are operating out of there. A lot of the top professors from Berkeley are doing their research over there. So anyway, I went to up the hill to meet these two gentlemen, and they were both together at the time I reached there. And when I entered the room, they were deep into discussion about a building energy simulation model, which is the top building energy simulation model used around the world, called Energy Plus. And these two guys were just criticizing Energy Plus. And they're like, oh, this is wrong in that model and this is wrong in that model. And the whole world uses this model, right? So they're getting really deep into what's wrong with this model and how they need to fix it. And they ignore me. They don't even know that I'm in the room and they're talking about all this stuff. Then they look at me and they're like, hey, I'm like, hey. They say, okay, what brings you here? I said, I've just graduated. I don't have a job. I'm going to be kicked out of this country in 2 months. And somebody online told me to come and meet you guys because you're doing some good work. So I'm here to find a job. They're like, okay, well, we're starting a program called Bijli. And this is the perfect time for you to meet us. And I said, what's Bijli? They said, Bijli stands for Berkeley, India Joint Leadership in Environment and Energy. Wow. So that one word is now tattooed on my hand.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's a symbol of Smart Joules. Exactly. The symbol of Smart Joules is Bijli.
That one word is like all over my life now. And it basically changed my life, right? Bijli. I didn't know much about electricity at that time, or I did know about energy, but not really too much about electricity and technically how it works or anything like that. But they said, this is a program that's starting and you can start next week. I said, how can I work for the US Department of Energy? I'm not a US citizen, I'm an Indian foreign national and they don't want me in this country. How can I work inside the government? They said, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. We'll hire you as a consultant and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, fine, let's start. So then I got to start working at Lawrence Berkeley Lab, and these guys were just the best guys, right? Professor Ashok Gadgil, who's, he just believes in making great technologies to solve real problems. He was the one who innovated the extremely efficient cook stoves for Darfur when there was a war over there, because he realized that women have to walk a lot and get firewood, and on the way back, they don't even make it half the time. Right? Or they get stopped and they get molested on the way back, and it's a big problem. He also invented water purification technology for Bangladesh because they had a lot of lead in their water. So he's just like an amazing guy doing research in the lab right next to my office, creating all these technologies that are then being commercialized and scaled up to solve real problems. So I got to work under his guidance, and the program got me onto the path of energy efficiency. Because guess what? I mean, California, from my office in Berkeley Lab, I was able to see the entire Bay Area, right? And the Bay Area is where energy efficiency really became real for the world. Okay, that's the hotbed of innovation in policy as well as technology for energy efficiency.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah, the best appliance standards, the best building energy conservation codes, the demand response programs of utilities, everything originated in California. So the guys who actually were responsible for a lot of this were working right in my office. So, this Bijli program was taking the experience of California and applying it to India and finding out what would happen in India if we followed a similar path to California, right? What could we achieve and how? Those were the two research questions that were posed to me. And I had a beautiful office, sitting and talking to all these people. And basically, I worked there for a year. And in that year, I got to meet a lot of utility companies, regulators, etc. from India. And I was loving the job, doing a lot of research, and found it culminated in a report which was titled Eliminating Electricity Deficit in India through Energy Efficiency.
Powerful.
And at that time, we had 300 million people in India without reliable energy access. And today, the mission of Smart Joules is eliminate energy waste.
I've seen that on the notebooks on your website.
Yeah, so it's almost the same. And that was 2008, and now we're in 2023.
So Bijli became the logo, and then that title actually became the mission of the company.
That's right.
It just shows you, the story shows you the power of, subtle influences that come into your life at the right time, and then they compound to the point where you can actually build an entire organization around solving that problem.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and also, what role people and conversations can play. They can just change the course of your career. So I always look forward to those. And also, it's a responsibility on people who are more experienced and people who come to ask you for advice. I mean, you better, don't screw around and, really think about what you're telling people.
For sure. So the seeds of Smart Joules got planted then.
That's right.
And when was Smart Joules really born? And tell us about what Smart Joules is. What are you guys really doing? How are you making climate action sexy? How are you making energy efficiency sexy? Let's talk about that too. So the birth of it and how it's grown.
Sure. Well, Smart Joules is the coolest company.
Nice. Good.
We work on sustainable cooling. I mean, there's nothing cooler than that, right? And nothing cooler than being comfortable and not sweating and not shivering, right? So what we do is keep you comfortable in the most sustainable manner possible. So it was started. I started this in 2015, incorporated in 2014 while I still had a job, but quit when I got a grant from the Echoing Green Foundation in New York. The mission of the company is to eliminate energy waste, and the specific target that we have for this decade is 29 million tons of carbon reduction. Okay, and that comes
29 million tons of carbon reduction.
That's right. That's the clear target that we have. Yeah.
And just for context, I think India emits currently annually about 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon per year. So that's about 1% you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so I look at the global emissions, right? Because single countries' emissions don't really matter that much. What matters to the world is what
global, about 40 billion tons.
So the world is 59 billion tons, and we have a target to get 50% towards net zero before the end of this decade. So that's 29 billion tons. And I feel like if we don't even contribute 0.1% towards that target, then we have no business of being in sustainability business. Yeah. Right? And we're just wasting the decade and telling wrong stories to people. So we should at least have a target to contribute 0.1%. And if there's 1,000 people like us who can achieve that target, then we'll get there, right? So that's what our target is, 29 million tons at least before 2030. Right now we are about 120,000 tons. So we have a huge amount of multiplication to do, is like maybe 270 odd X from where we are. But it's within reach, and it's tough, but it's within reach, and that's what we're wanting to do. So I can explain a little more about how we are.
Yeah, explain it like you would be talking to a 5-year-old. I like that you said Smart Joules is the coolest company out there because you're really about cooling.
That's right.
And it's the most sustainable way of staying cool. Right, which is work on energy efficiency and basically enabling access to more energy efficient environments to people. And I don't think enough people actually understand that your state of living or your quality of life is a direct function of two big things. One is how much protein you get, right? And the second is how much energy you get. And if those two are severely deficient, you cannot move into a better quality of life. So the success of any nation is always directly linked to how much more protein are people getting and how much more energy.
That's right. So, energy efficiency is a very, very fascinating topic. It's a bottomless pit. Okay. There's always more to do. It's a low-hanging fruit that keeps growing back. Okay. And it's the cheapest and most scalable way to fight climate change, right? So that's what attracts me to the topic. It consumes all the technical, every discipline of engineering that you can dream of, as well as finance and really working with markets. So very fascinating topic for anybody who likes to think and, be consumed with multiple different disciplines. So, I've always been like that. Even undergrad, I did environmental engineering and economics. My master's degree was also interdisciplinary. So I really enjoy the fact that it is an interdisciplinary field. It's not just software, it's not just mechanical engineering. It's like everything combined. Now,
absolutely.
The injustice that we have, okay, is that every building and factory is wasting 20, 30, 40, 50% of what they consume. Okay, it's just wasted because they can afford it. They're businesses, they're making money, they just waste energy. And we still have people like you and me who live in the capital city of Delhi who still have power cuts. And then think of all the people who don't have any energy access, right? So this topic is one of injustice. The topic is one of, wastage. The topic is one of carbon pollution, right? So those are the, when you can make something more efficient at the end use. So we work on end uses, right? So like big businesses, right? So we'll work with hospitals, we'll work with factories, we'll work with data centers, pharmaceutical plants, and we'll go there where the wastage is the highest, right? And also the economic incentive to save is the highest.
Yeah.
Because 1 unit of energy saved here is worth more because they pay the highest for energy compared to what you and I pay in our houses. So we attack the economic incentive, right? We go to people who pay the highest for the energy and who are most wasteful. And basically how we make it sexy is by making it simple. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are 3 words that drive our business. And those 3 words are simple, substantial, and profitable. So that's what we do. We make it simple to save substantial amounts of energy. And throughout, from the beginning of our association with any business, they make profits. They reduce their costs, make more profit, and we make it simple for them to do so with business models and with technology that we have.
And the model that you've picked is really cool too. It's a pay-as-you-save model. So you're always saving them energy costs and then taking your bit from that. Right? So it's a win-win.
Think of it like this, right? Somebody comes to you and says, I'm going to put a check in your pocket every month, guaranteed, and the check amount is going to be X. If the check amount is less than X, then I'll pay you the difference in the next month. And this is guaranteed to you for 7 years or 10 years or 12 years, right? And guess what? To get this check, you don't have to do anything.
Anything at all.
You don't have to do anything.
So you win, tails you win, right? You always win. And especially for the savings, savings mindset country that we are, even at a commercial scale, right? Even big businesses have big savings mindset. I think that model works really well, which is
that's right.
Tails win.
Yeah, and you know what? This is just the tip of the iceberg, right? So energy savings requires. So let's talk about what kind of things you need to do, right? To save energy, you have to improve the design of our spaces. To save energy, you have to use better equipment. And to save energy, you have to improve the quality of operations. Okay, so the third point is really, really important. So let's think about an air conditioning system. Okay, all of us have been to hotels and hospitals and commercial buildings, malls, office buildings. And what is our experience in these spaces, right? We either feel too cold, or we feel too hot, or we feel like, oh my God, I'm sweating, it's too humid, or we see there is a water leaking from the roof, right? We are never happy with our air conditioning experience, right? Why is that? Because we don't know how to operate these systems. The people who are operating these systems are operating based on thumb rules. They don't understand how to, and they can't respond to the dynamic demand because the weather is always changing. The occupancy is always changing. So that means the way you operate your air conditioning system should also always be changing, right? To respond to these dynamic demand fluctuations. However, we basically are blind to this and we operate manually with thumb rules. So, in addition to the cost savings that come with energy efficiency, improvements in service quality are equally important. So when we go into a facility like any one of these buildings that I mentioned, we'll do extensive monitoring of real-time comfort conditions. And we will tweak the operation of the air conditioning system to ensure that the desired comfort levels are always maintained, right? So now I'll just make it extremely real for you, right? Maybe if you've ever been to an orthopedic surgeon, I hope you haven't, but maybe you have, maybe somebody in your family has sometimes gotten a fracture.
I broke a collarbone twice, so yeah.
Right? So you go to an orthopedic surgeon's operation theater, right? The temperature that is required and the humidity that is required to set your cast is 18 degrees and 55% humidity.
Yeah.
Now, what happens without intelligent automation, without energy efficiency is that the doctor, and I've seen this happen, right? The OT doctor, the orthopedic surgeon, calls the chief engineer of the hospital and starts abusing him. Yeah. My cast is not setting. My patient is sitting over here. I'm done with my operation and the cast is not setting. What the heck are you doing, right? So, you know what the engineering guy does, right? The chief engineer who's just got this abusive phone call from the doctor, he'll just turn on all the machines. He'll be like, okay, I'm going to turn the air conditioner all on full blast, right?
Yeah.
Right away. So, first of all, he's not delivering what's the most important thing for the hospital, which is to provide good healthcare, right? He's interfering with that. Second, he is, he's reactive, right? He's reactive. And when he's reactive, he turns the air conditioning on full blast, which then starts wasting energy. So,
one extreme to the other.
Yeah. And one more thing, right? With the health, how do you turn on the air conditioning system on full blast? Is that you stop fresh air. You start recirculating the same air in the space so that it doesn't get hot. So now guess what you've done, right? You've made contaminated air get recirculated inside the operation theater, which is the worst place to recirculate air.
So this entire story, I think, is super valuable from the perspective that, think about, you actually describe the experience for a person on the other side, right? Somebody who's in that, who's the end user, who technically is engaging with a normal practice, going about his normal day, but now there is a more efficient way he can actually do his own business, but he needs somebody to make it super easily accessible to do so.
That's right.
And that's the whole idea of climate solutions, or in this case, carbon-specific solutions, right? Carbon-cutting solutions like energy efficiency. It has to be that last mile adoption has to be made so simple that even the guy on the ground, the frontline guy, can actually just adopt it and make it a default choice. Right? That is so powerful. And this actually goes really well with one of Climes' slogans, which is cut what emissions you can and then neutralize the balance that's left. Because there'll always be a residual balance, right?
Yep.
But cut what you can by driving an electric car over internal combustion engine cars, or having energy saving systems and more energy efficient systems than normal systems. But that last mile adoption is so fundamentally important, right?
Yep.
And that's why, like, making climate solutions and climate exercises sexy is our job, right? Like, that's where the new wave of climate companies exists. It's not just in having a great technical solution; it's actually creating the demand for it too.
Yeah, in our sector, you're absolutely right, Anirudh. Like, how to make it sexy, how to make it simple. I think this is underappreciated, and these are areas that require a lot of focus. So I'll give you an example. 2 days ago, I was on a panel with people who have been working in cooling for 20 years. And, we've got this model of cooling as a service for, new facilities, right? Where you can buy cooling just the way you buy power. You don't have to set up your own cooling plant. You don't have to operate it. You don't have to maintain it. You just buy cooling, right? So it's cooling as a service. It's a new model. And the people who are veterans of the industry are asking me, how the hell are you able to sell this? Right? Because this is new, right? We've never seen this in India, right? So how are you selling this? And how are people buying this? Because, ultimately there's so many vested interests. The question was, there's so many vested interests. There are like 5 people who need to make a decision. So how are you selling sustainable cooling and new way of doing business, right? And this is, mind you, this is critical infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
Cooling in a hospital, cooling in a pharmaceutical plant, cooling in a data center. These are fundamental. It's an essential service.
It's an essential good, yeah.
Yeah, and what you're doing is you're saying, please change the way you've done this throughout your life. Please change the way anybody has ever done this, right? So it's like, how are you able to sell this? And I think the answer lies in making it simple and making it sexy.
It's simple and effective. And that's where, this podcast is called The Voice of Generation Climate, Voice of Gen Z. So what is Gen Z? In fact, Priya came up with that term, right? Gen Z to describe people anywhere in society who have the intent to do something climate positive. That something could actually be anything.
That's great.
Like I mentioned 2 examples, right? It could be eating alternative proteins over normal meat. It could be driving that electric car. It could be putting a solar system on your rooftop. Any climate positive choice. And it could actually be anybody in society too. It's not a specific demography or an ethnography. It's a psychography. It's a way of thinking, right? And we have now identified in the last year and a half of Climes that people exist within organizations that actually care. Right? They have the intent. They just need the right solution to be positioned into their life so that they're willing to adopt it. Right? It's within organizations. It's within the government too. There are Gen Z folks. Within each household, there are people who can be Gen Z. Right? And it's actually about reaching that person and then making them want a solution without them having to go out of their way to do so.
Yeah, that you frame it really well, and I can see clear applications in my own business, right? What I need to sell is, first of all, top management buy-in, and then one other Gen Z person in the management team or the operating team. At least one. And you're absolutely right. There is always one. At least
There's always one. So, and that's a cool thing about the environment, right? Nobody actively hates it. Nobody actively ever says, no, I don't care. Screw the planet. He says that. But there is always that urgency problem of like, oh, it's a good to have. It's not a must have. Why now? Somebody else will do it. It's somebody else's responsibility. But like that gap is actually, I think, where operators like us and companies like Smart Joules, right, and so many other cool climate companies around India have a job to actually solve that gap, right? Because intent is there in the Gen Z folks, but the intent and action gap is missing, and that's where like funneling it in a way that it's easily adoptable, economically viable, and fun to do. So important, right?
That's right.
This is really where another organization that you and I are both involved with, the Sustainability Mafia, the not-for-profit foundation. The entire mission is to make sustainability a default choice.
Right.
So would love for you to actually talk about how that came about too, and what are we doing? What sort of people have we found? What mission do we have? What vision is there? You mentioned, like each company solving 0.1% of the problem. If there were 1,000, we would solve 100%. So I would just, take that. Let's go down that rabbit hole. Unpack that mafia for us and like, why are we doing what we're doing?
Okay, I'll do it in two ways. One is personal and one is organizational, right? So personal is that I was really missing an excellent community of like-minded people, right? A band, right? All of us human beings like to belong to any group that makes us feel good, where we feel like there are people like us, right? Where we can have open conversation, we can share our views, we don't have to worry about what the other person is thinking, and guess what? The other person is probably also motivated by the same things that you are. So I used to have this community back in back in Boston, and it was really.
You were at MIT. We forgot to cover that part only. After Berkeley, you were at MIT. We forgot that part.
So that that community was really energizing, and everybody, we had like. We used to have this slogan, saving the world one beer at a time, because we used to hang out in, the pub and talk about climate and talk about energy and how we're going to solve the energy crisis. What are the pockets of opportunity? What are people actually doing to change? We didn't talk about problems, right? We talked about what are we going to do about it? What is possible to do and what are we going to do, right? To change the situation, because energy is a big part of the climate problem, right? So when I came back to India, I found the exact opposite. I found that everybody's so consumed, at least the people around me were so consumed in their day-to-day lives. I did not find a community either at my workplace or amongst my friend circle or anywhere, right? Where I could talk about what I'm passionate about, where I could talk about climate problems, where I could talk about the last 10 years of what I'd learned and, similar and learn from other people with similar experiences. So, one day I was in a conference somewhere in Bangalore, and I heard Ganesh from FluxGen talk about not water. That time he was working on solar grids, right? So I heard him talk about solar grids, and I thought, man, this guy is really cool. I really like this guy. He's actually talking about real problems, what he did about it, what did he learn from it, what does he want to do next, like such a constructive way to discuss something. And I wrote an email to him that same night, and I said, I want to meet you. So he said, why is this guy from MIT want to meet me, right? So he immediately responded saying, yes, please come over to my house tomorrow. So I struck a friendship with him, and a few months later, I found that he's already congregated a group of like 10, 12 people who are like-minded, and I was like, well, this is the community that I've been missing, right? So that was the personal hook, right? But overall, then of course Ganesh and I and others, we sat, we discussed a lot about what we can do with this, because it's not just like you don't want to just stroke your own ego and like that's not enough. We got to do something for the world. So we thought, okay, India has 21 of the 30 most polluted cities in the world. Okay, India has some of the best talent in the world, and if we have 21 of the 30 most polluted cities, we must also create 21 of the 30 top climate companies in the world within this decade.
Absolutely. And it's happening now. Yeah.
So we got to make some of the biggest, most impactful climate companies in the world, because we have most of the problems. And when I say climate, it's not just carbon, right? It's for the other things too. So,
water, waste, air pollution. And we're actually most at risk, right? Yeah. Countries along the equator at most at risk. Exactly. And India is within that set, the most at risk of heat waves, forest fires, hurricanes. All
for a number of reasons. We are at risk not only because of the rivers, but also because of the glaciers melting, because of the topologies that we have, because of the kinds of buildings that we have. They are not stable. So if there's a landslide, hundreds of people, thousands of people are going to die. So we have all the problems and we need solutions which are homegrown. Guess what? The Schneiders and the Honeywells and the Johnson Controls of the world are not going to come and solve Indian problems. We are going to solve European and North American problems. And I'll give you a corollary, very, very simple corollary to my job, right? I work on intelligent automation. I'm taking on these big giants in the field of automation. Guess what problem they try to solve with automation? American and North and European problem. What are those problems? Human capital is expensive. So guess what? You need centralized control. What are Indian problems? Energy is expensive and rare. So our automation system is entirely built to optimize for the energy resource, not the human people. So I mean, the design objective is different. So who's gonna create the solutions for our problems? It's us. It's not anybody else, right? And how is that going to happen? Back to the point about SAS Mafia. How is that going to happen? It is not going to happen in isolation with all of us working individually on our own problems. It's just not going to happen. It's only going to happen if you, Anirudh, tell me, Arjun, I met the CEO of Tata Power yesterday, and guess what? I told him about you, and here's his number. Just give him a call, and there you go, right? And it's going to happen when I tell you, Anirudh, I know that you're going to raise another round tomorrow. Well, guess what? I've been doing the rounds, and I found these two guys, and they were saying that we were looking for a company in the carbon space, and Climes would be a great fit for them, and the check size is just right. The other two guys, talk to them. That is how we are going to win, right? And it's happening. And on the opposite side, if we don't do that, we are going to go further and further and further behind. Because guess what? We are starting way behind. We are way behind the West and also China. Way, way, way behind. And if we don't collaborate, if we look only inwards, right? If we only look to ourselves, we are going to get farther behind rather than catch up and even beat them and get to the 21 out of 30 that we ought to be.
I fully agree. In fact, I think we've always talked about how climate is not a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Right? It cannot be. It's not that one solves everything and then wins and then everybody else has to lose. If that happens, everybody actually does lose.
Yeah.
Right? Here we need very many different solution providers across waste, water, carbon, air pollution, right? The entire spectrum. In fact, we have this really cool sustainability octopus that we had made a long time ago, which broke down with inspired by Captain Planet, fire, water, earth, air, heart. And within it, we had subcategories of solutions.
That's right.
And there's so many cool climate solutions that exist. It's a question of having great operators within that space innovating and then creating the demand for their solutions, right? Going to a lay person who's, a Gen Z person who's got intent, but doesn't know how to take that action. And then bridging that gap, instilling it into individual habits, instilling it into enterprise habits, instilling it even at the government level, right? And scaling that solution. And I think we can do that really well.
That's right.
We're so creative, so fundamentally creative, but it's a mindset of, okay, this is not a zero-sum game. Individually, we can do so much. Right. Collectively, we can do so much more, right?
We are very creative. And the other thing is that in India, and well, actually anywhere in the world, right? Networks and all these things really matter. So if we just collaborate effectively and open doors for each other, we are definitely going to be 10 times more successful than we would be on our own. So that's the X factor that I hope to drive in SAS Mafia, right? If you are a mafioso, you are 10 times more likely to be successful than the next guy who's exactly you, except he's not a mafioso.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what it is. And I think we got to keep working on that and, make that happen.
And we started off with, solving for the entrepreneur, the builder of a company, right? That's what we call mafioso. But there are so many more stakeholders in society who are also these Gen Z folks, right? Who have their parts to play. There are investors, right? There's investors like Priya and so many more who are pure climate investors, and then generalist investors who are going deeper into the climate space, right? And that's one set. They're playing their part of actually fueling the capital that's needed to enable solutions to scale, right? Then there's people who individually want to join a really large mission and say, I want to run for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, building an iconic company and really making, my dent in making climate change be a little bit less, closer to the, nearer to like 2023, right? I think a lot of us are just playing the game of slowing it down as much as possible, right? So many people are now getting into the climate space too. So as operators, there are people who are thinking about their first career being in the climate space, or their second career coming from all sorts of industries. And then there is policymakers, right, who are actually in a position of using the policy lever to enable the scaling of massive solutions. And I think with communities, the power of community is so understated. It's so underutilized. Typically, we fall back on our communities of like our ethnicity and our race. All in India, we've always grown up with that. Or even like our school networks, right? But how about around interests? How about around like careers, helping each other, shaping each other's careers, enabling access to more customers, right? Enabling access to more capital. I really think that's how we have a shot at a cleaner, safer, fairer, better future.
Yeah, definitely. Right? Definitely. And everybody needs, I think the other point is that any Gen Z person needs a fundamental grounding and some source of truth. And I think entrepreneurs are extremely strong sources of truth because they're so deep into what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, what you're doing, I probably won't find that much information about your space than just talking to you, right?
Yeah.
I could read 100 reports, right, about your space. I could talk to lots of investors. I could talk to policymakers. I could talk to any marketing guys, consultants, lawyers. I don't think I'm going to get even 1/10 of the information from them that I will get from you. Because guess what? As an entrepreneur, you're all of those disciplines in one. So I think that's the other power of SaaS Mafia, with the mafioso at the center of the community, right? Founders have more information, more in-depth knowledge, more practical experience, more rounded information than almost any other discipline. So I think that's what makes the community really strong and powerful. And for anybody else, right, an investor or a lawyer or a consultant or anybody else who are also, of course, extremely important players, for them to come and get value, right, to get the best source of truth and then raw information from mafiosos.
I think the search for truth, that's such a cool tagline, right? Like mafiosos are on the search for truth of what can work.
That's true. Yeah, experimentation, right? Keep experimenting until you find it. When you find it, it scales. That's the truth.
And there's a role for everybody. There's a role for investors. There's a role for people who are looking to work. There's a role for people who are looking to build solutions. There's a role for policymakers to actually enable those solutions to scale.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, right, that we still don't have a climate politician.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Modi is doing a lot of stuff, and Piyush Goyal talks a lot, and RK Singh talks, power minister now, but do we really have a politician who has become a politician because of climate? No. Right? Now imagine, like, if a friend of yours or anybody who's listening to this podcast wants to be India's first climate politician.
That'd be so cool.
Guess where they can get their best education? In the SaaS market, right? 50 entrepreneurs helping one person with an ambition to be a climate politician to actually become one. Right? So that they can speak intelligently about all the spaces that are important in climate. So I don't think that the day is far when we'll be actually having a program for politicians.
100%. And in fact, like, there's an audience out there that's already willing and ready, right? So again, back to the whole Gen Z thing. People are there across all ages who want more, who want to breathe better air, who want to drink better water, who want less heat waves or whatever. It's a daily
conversation within every household, right? Every
household now.
So much of Delhi is leaving Delhi because of poor air quality. They just leave.
Exactly.
Now, I've lost some friends. They've gone from here. They're like, we're not going to stay here, right? We've had a chance to move to the hills.
The audience is out there. It's a question of just like reaching the right person, being able to reach them. And that's a cool idea. I think like climate politicians will actually help us enable policy to scale solutions that are very willing and readily.
That's right.
We don't have a shortage of solutions. We actually have a shortage of that intent action gap, right? Scaling it.
Politicians who just talk, right, without a solid grounding. These would be people who know what they're talking about because they're part of the mafia.
For sure. The next role is around capital, right? So there are so many investors in the space now, traditional investors, climate-specific investors, and then big private equity funds. And in fact, Smart Joules is raising their Series B now.
That's right.
Phenomenal company, best one out there to like put your money on. But you have this really cool quip, which I love, which is, what's the filter to choose great founders or companies to bet on in India? Throw out all the math, throw out all the logic. Just bet on Banyas, Marwadis, and Sindhis.
Oh, that's right.
Right? Have you actually found that to be true, or is there another model that you think? Like, how do you see the flow of capital going into the climate space?
So, are you asking me what are the good characteristics of founders, or like how do you make bets? Or?
Yeah, like how? So, there's a lot of capital that's needed, right? The three things that scale exponentially when you and I are sleeping.
Right.
It's capital, it's technology, and it's media.
Yeah.
These are the three big levers you can actually leverage to grow your business exponentially. Technology is fine. We're a great country on tech talent.
Yeah.
Media, fine. If you understand social media and you understand, different tools, you can leverage that too.
Right.
What about capital? Compared to 5 years ago versus 2 years ago versus now, what pattern and trend have you seen play out? And what trend have you seen play out, and what makes one investor better than the other? Like, what's quality capital?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a sea change just from 2 years ago. We don't even have to go 5 years back. 2 years ago, we were in the market to raise money, and the kinds of questions first of all, we had to do a lot of education. Right?
Yeah.
What is energy efficiency? What does that mean again? Why climate? What is a ton of carbon? Why is it important? Can you trade it? Can you not? I mean, I can't even tell you how much basic education we had to do. And we used to get, none of the major funds or, even the large angel investors were actually aware of the basics. Right? So you would spend a lot of time doing that. Now, I was in Bombay earlier this week, and in 2 days I was able to meet 9 investors for 2 hours each.
Wow.
So I spent 18 hours with investors in 2 days. And guess what? All of them understand what we are doing. They understand the problem that is there in the power sector. They understand that cooling is an increasing demand. They already understand all these things. So half my pitch is already understood by them, at least half of it, right? So I think that is a huge shift. The number of investors who are available, in the climate space is much larger. The quality of these investors is much higher. Their pockets are much deeper. Their horizons of investment are much longer, and the
right. They're playing a longer game now, and they're far more intentional about it. It's not just like flavor of the day, theme. It's purpose with capital, right? Like solve for purpose by directing capital. And hey, by the way, there's actually an expected return also at the end of it. Because building purposeful businesses can lead to profit, which is phenomenal.
So, you asked the second question, which is what is the best kind of investor, at least.
Yeah.
I think everybody will have a different answer to this because a lot of it is what suits your business, right? That the investor should have experience in businesses like yours. So that is one part of it. But the other part of it that I really enjoy, what I get a kick out of, is consistency. Okay. Yeah. I like to meet investors who have consistently done something, and especially if they've consistently been in the climate space for as long as I have. I really like those investors. They have a different kind of maturity level. They've seen the ups and downs of climate companies. They know that ultimately we're doing it for a purpose. There are, the ups and downs. They're with you. They've seen a lot of types of companies in the space. They are excited. They are equally excited as us about the space in general, and that shows, right? And they will go the extra mile. So I think consistency of climate action is something that I look for in an investor, and that kind of
consistency of climate action. That's a lovely one. And optimism. I think they have to, by nature, be very optimistic people. Right?
Yeah.
If you can't be pessimistic, then climate change.
We haven't had that many successes. So it's, despite the fact that we haven't had that many successes, I still think that climate investors are generally optimistic.
Optimistic. Yeah. And this is a great segue into the fact that you also wear a hat as an angel investor now. Right, and your first angel investment was Climes. So not only is Arjun the CEO and founder of Smart Joules, and a co-director of the Sustainability Mafia, but he's also an investor into Climes. And we've been so happy to have him from day one on this journey. What made you do that? What made you actually say, okay, I'm going to go beyond being an operator and now also being an investor?
Sure.
Why did you choose to support Climes?
Well, I'm a bunnier.
Yeah.
I like to see my money grow. And I think investing in early stage scalable ideas with amazing founding teams is a way to make your money grow faster than anything else. Right? So, my wife makes fun of me sometimes. She's like, if you had 100 rupees, you would invest all those 100 rupees in Smart Joules. Before I invested in Climes, that was true. I just put all my money into Smart Joules, but of course, I don't have to put money into Smart Joules anymore. We've got institutional capital and I don't have any close to the amount of money that Smart Joules needs. But I feel like and of course, the growth that you get in early stage companies is disproportionate, right? So I feel like, if I can see somebody as driven and motivated as me, trying to start a business or just started a business, which can be at least as impactful as mine, then I would like to support that. I would like to be a part of that. And that's why I invested in Climes and, always keep my eyes out for other excellent founders and excellent missions and, people who like to learn. I think that's the other thing. One thing that I really like about you is that you like to learn, and every 6 months you're a different person because you've learned so much, right? And I think that is one quality that I look for in an angel investment. I would like to see what have you learned in the last 2 years? What do you hope to learn in the next 1 year? And if there is a convincing, very, very well thought, convincing answer there, then chances are that the guy or the girl that you're talking to is a good investment potential.
Wow, what a beautiful answer. Are there other companies that you have found, not specifically from an investment lens, but other companies in the climate space in India that you particularly really respect and admire? Either for the teams or for the solution, but any that come to your mind that you think you want to give a shout out to? Right before this call, I was judging about 34 startups for the finals of Elecrama. Oh, wow.
Which is, this new startup competition that we started because I also joined IMA on the board.
Yeah, you're on the board of that. Yeah,
there were a lot of good companies there. And I was really, really motivated and, I became even more optimistic after seeing the kinds of entries that were there. Just to give you a couple of names, right? There is this organization called Tech Uncorked. They are going after the distribution losses. Right? Of course, I like companies and energy efficiency. This company, there's nobody who has any grounding in energy in this company. All the founders they have 30 years of experience. They've come from software, product development, finance, etc., etc. Somehow they've landed on the problem of energy waste in distribution utilities. And they've built an amazing product that allows utilities to find where there is theft, where there are losses, and automatically eliminate that. So I really like that company.
That's really cool. So while it's getting transmitted on the transmission lines, how much leakage is happening, and then you're trying to optimize.
Very, very deep. Like it's not just like, how much is happening? It's why is happening? Which component is failing? And it's going to predict the failure as well. And it's going to resolve some of the things that are resolvable. So, that was a good one. There's another called Live and Sense. Again, related to my area. This is digital twin, artificial intelligence. What I liked about this company was a very fresh approach towards go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
Right. So traditionally, go-to-market strategy is something, again, underappreciated, underthought about. People always think about technology and all that, but go-to-market strategy is extremely important because ultimately it's all about scale. And if you can't scale, it doesn't matter how good you are. So this company, Live and Sense, they've got this digital twin and artificial intelligence technology. And if you look at their partners, their go-to-market is through partners who are big, right? They'll go to IBM and say, here's a partnership. Let me empower your technologies with mine and let's do a part, right? They'll go to Accenture. They'll go to McKinsey, right? They'll be like, you guys have so many customers who are so big. Let me introduce my technology through your channels, right? So, and they've already got so many partnerships and very little time, they've got $350,000 of revenue. So,
wow.
I think I respect companies that make revenue, that make money, right? And
They have to, otherwise they can't sustain themselves into the future, right?
Right. So this company, and then people who take big shots, right? So Tech Uncork, solving difficult problem, Live in Sense, I really like. And of course, shout out to Sheru, very good company. They also
AWS of energy, right?
Sorry?
They call themselves the AWS of energy.
Yeah, I mean, virtual power plants, enabling storage everywhere. I think Priya's, our SAS Mafia co-director has invested in Sheru, and I think she's done a really good job picking a good team. So these are three companies that I'm very excited about just from today. And, the point is, if you ask me this question tomorrow, I am sure I'm going to have three other companies.
Yeah, it's booming. Climate tech overall is booming, and it's such a good time to be a founder in the climate tech space, an operator in the climate tech space, an investor in the climate tech space, right? And I think doing it from India is the single best place to be.
And also, I would add, as a professional, you don't have to be an entrepreneur, even if you're starting out.
An operator, yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. So an operator, yeah. Anybody in a team of a company that is working on climate action is already motivated.
Exactly. And that's actually, you can speak for that more deeply too, because your company, Smart Joules, now has 170 people.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong, right? And there are 170 different journeys of how people got there.
That's right.
What is a common trait and a pattern you've seen in all of them? Because they're also Gen Z. They're working, they've committed their life, all their hours to working in this space, right? So what is the common traits you've seen?
I think, so I actually have data on this because we do, quarterly surveys of every single person in the team for, I don't know how long now, a long time. And every single time, there are two things that are always on top. So one of the questions we ask is, what do you love most about Smart Joules or working in this company and all of that stuff, right? Because we want to do more of that. And every single time there's two things that top the charts. Number one is learning, okay, which is my personal favorite as well. And I think we do a good job in enabling that for our people. And the second is climate action, the mission of the company, it gets tough. It gets tough in a company, in a startup, fast growth, when you're still figuring out a lot of things, especially if you're a good performer, you're going to get 10 times the workload of anybody else, right? So it gets really tough for good people. They get crushed. So, this learning and passion and mission for the, passion for the mission is something that you want to keep alive in your company. And, I see this as a very good sign that most of the people in the company are really motivated by that. Right?
That's incredible, because that's 170 people who are now climate warriors in their own homes and their own ecosystem, right? And they're like fire starters, and wherever they go, they will kind of ignite and spread the message and convert people into being climate warriors, right? So that's very, very powerful.
It's like a chain reaction.
Absolutely. So that chain reaction in your own house as an individual, right? What all sustainable practices have you over the years adopted? And you're a recent father also, so maybe you can talk about how you're bringing a new child into the world, Mowgli, and how is sustainability being inculcated into his environment? So you as an individual, your family, and then your child.
Okay, I'll talk about me as an individual first. So I did this experiment once at home. And I live in Delhi, right? It gets really hot and humid. So I did this experiment for a season of not using an air conditioner. For a whole season, okay? No AC at all. So what I did was I put two fans, one ceiling fan and one floor fan faced right at me. And I still have that floor fan. In fact, every room I occupy, whether it's my home office or my real office or my bedroom, there are two fans, even now. And I've been doing this for 6 years. You know what what it allows you to do is cut your air conditioning consumption in less than half, because more than half the time, two fans are enough. You don't need air conditioner and you don't need anything. So that is one thing that I've been consistently doing, because one of your highest energy imprints is air conditioning. So if you can cut cooling use, right? So what I do is in the summer, I wear less clothes, right? Even less than...
That's also just because you like being naked.
Yeah, in the winter, layers, but I won't put the heater on. Okay, so I think that's one thing I've done. Another thing, my wife, what she did for Mowgli, our son, is diapers. I mean, it's ridiculous how many diapers we go through. we go through like 10, any baby, right, will go through like 10, will need 10 diaper changes in a day. Now, of course, the old Indian practice is really good, and not only Indian, around the world, like no diapers at all, right? You just use a langot and tie that and then, right?
Langot is the OG sustainable.
That's solution. The OG. We don't do that, but I would, but I think we don't do that, but we at least use, compostable diapers and, that's Mowgli. There's not much more there, but I'll tell you one thing. Climate action at home is actually the most difficult. Okay, because your family and all that, everybody, at least I have experienced this in my house, very, very difficult. I tried to put a solar plant, I worked on it for 6 months. I got the CEO of Tata Power Delhi to send the team over here to specially do something in our house. And the moment I was about to sign the deal, my father happened to come in. Okay, and he's like, "Who's this? What are you doing right now?" I said, "I'm going to sign a deal for solar." And he basically didn't let it happen. He's like, "No, this is what happened and that." I was like, "Shh, I should have been outside the house when I was doing this deal, not inside." Because, it would have been too late. So, point is that it's tough to take climate action at home. But again, there is always a Gen Z. And in my house, it's my mom.
Yeah.
So there is not a single morsel of food that is wasted. Every single bone, every single scrap is eaten either by human beings or by the dogs in our house, or by the cats in our house, or by the crows in our house, or by the monkeys or the dogs in the forest that is close to my house. So nothing goes to waste, and I think that's the Gen Z. My mom.
Very cool. That's the power of the individual, or more than one individual in each household, right? Of being Gen Z. What a lovely conversation, Arjun. It's always such a pleasure. You have so many roles to play in our life at Climes. This has been truly a fun conversation. Thanks for your time, man.
Thanks. I wish we could keep it going, because I feel like every time I talk to you, I get energized. I started this conversation with a little less energy, but now I feel pumped. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much.